right, everybody, we're back. Moving on to part 4 and moving my attention to the roof now. So I've already cut this piece to fit on top of the structure that I've cut the one side off of. And that is the roof. I missed it the first go around. Found it laying around, and as I got to this part, I realized there is a section of roof right there. So anyway, found that one, got it painted up. So ready to probably give that the same treatment as this bigger piece. I'm thinking what I'm going to do is put some glue down, just regular white glue, and then basically put ballast on here. I have a ballast that I haven't actually used on the layout. It's a little finer. I think it's an N-scale ballast, just a sort of gray ballast with this sort of dark gray black undercoat. I think that might look good. So I'm going to do that, and I think I'm going to put the same thing on that section. But before I do, what I want to do is, I've had this kit for a while. I've used a few bits and pieces of it, and I'll put a little picture in there. My very first build was a DPM sort of how to use their modular system kit, and I modified it into more of a flat than a rectangle. And I used a couple of these things on there. So now I need to kind of look through here and decide what I want to use for the brewery. And I'm thinking if I use some, like air conditioning type things like that, or maybe that one, that I'll put so that it's sitting up. I'll use styrene and make a nice thick styrene and make a rectangle, paint it concrete like that color, and glue it onto the roof, and not put the stone there, just have like a concrete pad, and then the air conditioning unit sitting on there. And I'll probably grab some other random ducts and vents and things, and I don't know, this blower looks kind of cool, and breweries have all kinds of cool equipment, so I don't know, maybe I'll throw that on there too and just add some interest. So I need to kind of look through this kit, figure out what I want to do, which pieces, cut some styrene, glue it down, or paint it, then glue it down, and then do that gravel treatment. So we'll come back when I made a little progress. Here's a pro tip. When you're spray painting, do it outside. Even when you do it inside, with a nice big piece of cardboard like this, if the cardboard's got holes in it, it acts like a stencil. And I got some overspray on the backdrop there too. That's okay. This is just blue paint. Someday this will be a photo backdrop. I have extra paint, both the blue and the brown, to touch up. But yeah, pro tip, don't do that. All right, I've been rummaging around the box of goodies. I've only used 2 things from here, so lots to choose from. So I think I'm going to use the medium air conditioner, which is that one, and stick that right over that imperfection from earlier, which unfortunately wasn't cut off as I made the roof fit. So I think that'll go sort of there. And then as I think about the building, remember, I'm going to have this whole area be open like that. You're going to be able to see inside. It's going to be a big brewing area with tanks and catwalks and all kinds of cool stuff in there. And I'm going to light that up. And so I actually do know a little bit about brewing. And wherever the mash and kettle are, the mash tun and kettle, where there'd usually be like a catwalk and a control panel where you actually make the beer, make the liquid before it gets fermented. It's boiling, and it's, 30 barrels, which is, I don't know, 900 and some gallons. These are big tanks. Those usually would have an exhaust stack that would go all the way up, come out the roof. A lot of times they're, steam jacketed and all kinds of industrial cool stuff. So, that just screams the exhaust stack that would be on like a, big brewing setup or something. So I think I'm going to grab that. And if I think about offsetting, have the mash tun and kettle I just described sort of on this side, and then maybe have a bunch of tanks and stuff over here, and barrels and pallets and cool stuff in the middle. Something like that. Maybe the tanks in the middle. I'll think about it, but I think I do want to put the actual brew house, which is the mash tun and kettle, over on the one side. So that means that sort of around in this area, you'd have your, maybe that blower. And then just to have kind of a cool, just something else interesting on the roof, I'm gonna grab that thing and I don't know, probably stick it somewhere on this side over here just for interest. And so that's what I'm thinking for the roof. So the roof details kit, usually most of them are 3, 4, 5 pieces. Put them together, clean them up, get them painted up, and I'll take it from there. So that's the plan. More to come. All right, on the topic of things no one's ever going to see, little details and things, but I feel like if you look at one of these things and see a flaw, that kind of ruins the illusion. So I'm trying to, even though these are little roof details, I'm trying to, put them together right. So here's what I'm thinking. There's the roof. Obviously it's lined up with the building. So I talked earlier about the kettle and the stack coming off the kettle. I think it actually looked more like this. So that's what I'm going to put over here. And then if you think about the interior detailing later, we'll have the kettle and the mash tun and stuff, and a pipe maybe going up into the ceiling if I think we can even see that. Anyway, it's going to be over on this side on the left. Then I've got that medium AC unit sitting in the middle of the roof, like I talked about. And I made a little concrete pad that I used, pan over here, 060 sheet styrene, and just cut a square out or a rectangle that was, a little bit bigger than the footprint of the unit. And then I can't file this under, no one's ever going to see this. I scribed a little bit of expansion joints in there. So like they poured a little concrete pad there. And the AC unit sits like that. So I guess you'll be able to see the ends of it and stuff. Obviously I would lay it out somewhat straight. And then the blower that I wanted to use, I think I'm going to put it over here. And what I'm going to say is, if you think about it on the layout, there's the 2 tracks. There's a track closest to the loading dock, and then one a little farther away that I'm going to use for grain. And usually what breweries do is they get malted barley that's whole, and it has to be crushed on site. You want to crush it on site so you can control the size of the crush and the ratio of the little dust to the husks. You want to basically leave the husks intact in an ideal crush. I'm going way down the brewing rabbit hole here. Leave the husks intact. They act as a filter bed in the process, but crush the interior of the barley kernel as close to a powder as you can, so that in the mashing process, as much of the surface area is exposed to water, which that's where the heat comes from, and the enzymes that come out of the barley act on the starch that's in the barley husk and turn it into sugar to be fermented. So like I said, it's a little bit of a brewing rabbit hole. But anyway, on site you would see there would be a separate room, I won't call it airtight, but certainly with a door and something out of the way, away from all these areas over here where you're fermenting, because you don't want the staphylococcus and other stuff that's on the barley malt getting anywhere near your fermenters. So you would normally pipe the dust and get it out of the building. So that's what I'm going to use that for. I'm going to say that the box cars of grain come in on track 2 over here. I'm going to have a silo. It's going to go under, and I'm going to say that the place that they crush the barley is sort of in the back right of the building somewhere. So that's where that's going to go. And then I just put this here, and this is the top. This is the rest of that corner there. And I'm glad I laid it here, because I originally had this thing way over there and you'd never see it because it'd be behind that. So anyway, I slid it over to the left a little bit, just kind of seeing how things are going to line up. And obviously the water tower was going to sit over here. So that's a little bit about what I'm thinking. One last little thing on things no one's probably ever going to notice, that if I zoom in there, you can see how that part is 2 halves that come together. I've been kind of sanding it with really fine grit sandpaper, but there's still just a little bit of a lip there. So I'm going to come in with some acrylic putty and work that seam so that it looks like just one solid metal sheet. Again, the illusion of metal when it's really just plastic. So that's where we are, way down the rabbit hole. All right, got the air conditioners and vents and things cleaned up and painted. I started with a coat of dark gray, almost a black, and then came in with just a metallic finish. I'm not in love with it. It's almost like too speckly. I might try to tone that down with some whiter gray powders. You know, out from a distance it looks good, but as you get up close, yeah, you can kind of see some of those speckles and stuff. And I don't know. It's getting that metallic look is challenging, but I'll mess with that a little bit more. And then got the pad painted and threw a little bit of a wash on there for weathering. Mostly that's Starship Filth, which is that grayish blackish color. And I did throw a little green in there just for interest. It's on the roof. You know, sometimes, especially in the shadow of the AC unit, you might get a little moss or mold or something like that. Anyway, so I think as that dries, those stark lines will kind of blend in a little bit. I may hit it with a few powders and stuff as well. So that's the pad. And over on the workbench, starting to get into the tower. So many parts of this kit had little marks and indentions in the plastic from the molding process. And I put the water tower up against that, and these little circles around the outer circumference of that's the top of the tank, they were visible. So filling them in, I'll sand them off. Cleaned up the edges of each of these pieces. Had 2 little burr marks on each side. I went through and filed all that down. The pipe came in 2 halves, so I cleaned that up, glued it together, and I've got some, sorry for the shaky camera, jeez. There we go. So I got some acrylic putty in there as well, just to kind of clean that up. So just working on the detail pieces here. I think my goal for this video is going to be to get the roof done. So we'll see how that goes. Also on the computer, I started working on a couple signs for the brickwork, although I don't know if I'll be able to get to that. Try to kind of focus on the roof and get that done. So anyway, more to come. All right, working on the the water tower here, and making it like this. I tell you, Walthers has caused me to let loose with the full complement of 4-letter vocabulary that I know as I'm trying to get these little sections lined up. I'm using the base as kind of a guide to get the circumference right, and it doesn't take anything. You come in here with the little brush with the glue on it, and it knocks that one over, and I'm just trying to. Anyway, it's making me wonder if I worked on a sailing vessel of some sort in a former life. We'll get through it. The plan here is to get all these sections glued together and then paint them up, because I'm going to have like the vertical pieces are wood, and then the metal bands that go around it, and the roof piece looks to be mostly metal, so I'll paint that separately and glue it on after I've finished the wooden part. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. So we'll keep getting through this. I hope my kids can't hear me down the hallway. Pretty bad. More to come. So I've devised a method using 1, 2, 3 blocks to hold that up. It seems to be working okay. I'm gonna have to come in and work on the seam a little bit with some putty. That's okay. I expected that. Main thing is I just want to get the structure of it together so I can start working on the finish and go from there. So just a note, 1, 2, 3 blocks. You know, most of you guys probably have a bunch of these. I've got 2 pairs, probably could use more. Very helpful to hold stuff together and give you something to push against. All right, that was not as bad as it initially seemed once I started using the blocks. And the other thing here, I've mentioned in other videos in this series about glue not bonding well to painted surfaces. Well, this base of the tower is already painted the concrete color, and forming it up on here as the glue drips down, it gets tacky and sticks, but it's pretty easy to pull that right off of that paint. So it's actually working in my favor for this. And then once I get ready to actually glue this down, I'll carefully go around the, this surface, the concrete surface where the water tower actually sits, to expose some of the plastic. I'll probably just use a fresh X-Acto blade and get in there and scrape some of the paint off. So right now I'm just kind of going in and dropping some cement down each of these cracks, just a little bit, and just trying to reinforce it a little bit so I can work with it without the bottom or the top on it, and it'll be hopefully fairly solid. All right, out in the trusty paint booth, my screen porch. Looking at the seam there, I didn't really do a lot, and I think because that kind of lines up with where all the cracks in the wood are, I'm not gonna not gonna worry about that. I think the rings going around it are close enough. This side and then over here and over here ended up looking pretty good, so I'm not gonna worry about it. I think I'm gonna use this. Use the, let's see, what color do I have here? German Field Gray of the Vallejo Hobby Spray. I don't know, kind of a nice little base sort of primer color, decent wood color. I'll probably distress it with some, come into some of the boards and give them a little more of a gray, different gray and tannish gray hues to represent individual boards, and then come around, probably mask it off and very carefully hit the rings with like a steel color, and then probably get some rust and some streaks going on them, and call it good. And then a little water pipe, gave it the same sort of primer color. I'll probably make that look more like a rusted metal, maybe some like a dark, like a black, and then some rust powders on there maybe. And then the roof, I haven't quite figured it out. I just used the same thing as sort of a primer, and it looks a little splotchy because it's still drying. So that's where we are. Okay, so here's all the other parts and pieces there. So those pieces probably need to go on before the gravel part as well. But I'm going to go ahead and start working towards that while the water tower you guys saw in the other segment that sits up there sort of drying and curing, and I'll keep pressing on with the roof here. I think, again, what I think I'm going to do, I'm going to think about it a little bit, but what I think I'm going to do is probably somewhat a glue that's somewhat cut with maybe isopropyl alcohol, maybe not, maybe I'll go straight glue, get a base coat of like a N scale ballast on the roof and see how that looks, and if I need to add more above it, maybe I add a second layer and then come back with the isopropyl alcohol and some more glue to get it down. So I'll see what that all looks like. And then the pad, I just came in with a couple washes and stuff just to kind of weather it up. Again, that sort of grainy texture of that metallic paint I used, I'm probably going to try to knock that back with some gray powders, kind of tone it down just a little bit. And then I'll probably come into that grate there. Sorry, my finger is gigantic, but the grate on the right hand side of it with some like a detail wash, just to kind of pull out that. That I'll probably leave alone. That one as well. And then I don't know, I've seen some other guys do some cool stuff with very small wire coming out of that little box on the left hand side and run over maybe something off of that as well, and put a little junction box or something over here, and maybe a little light above that door. I don't have any of that stuff, and LEDs and the lighting piece is going to come eventually next, maybe. We'll see how far I get on the roof, but yeah, just thinking through maybe one little extra level of detail there up on the roof, because I said earlier no one's going to see it, and the more I think about it, actually, for model buildings, we see the roof all the time. It's just in the real world we don't. So it's like you have to really think about, what do roofs look like? Because I don't usually see the top of a 4-story structure, right? But in HO scale I do, and I want it to look convincing and interesting and all those kinds of things. So more to come. What's happening? Where'd the building go? We're upside down looking inside the roof. I'm just showing, I used a 3/16 inch styrene I-beam across the back, since it no longer has the far wall to support the roof, just to keep it from sagging. So that's just something I do. I've done this a couple of times where I modify a kit, turn it into a flat. This is a nice easy way to keep this from flexing and sagging down the road. So just showing that. All right, I'm gonna do my best to kind of hold this with one hand and show you guys with the other hand. But I've got the water tower concrete pieces kind of held in place. And if I pivot around over here, you will see, if I can get back there, a little gap at the bottom corner there. If I come back around front and show you why that gap is there. I don't know if it's me or the kit, probably me, but that little angle right there that the pieces are supposed to sit on the outside is slightly off. And I know I've got a little bit of a gap in there. I don't know if the camera's going to focus in there. Try to go in, it's kind of hard to see. But anyway, that needs to go. So I'm going to just use my nippers and get that out of there. That way those concrete pieces will line up correctly. And then I'm probably going to need to do a little putty and you know, repaint a little bit. The tops of these things, I took all of the paint off it, but the way that thing sat, if you think back to what I just showed, it's kind of, let me see if I can actually do it real quick. Put that there, and I'll forget the one on the end and just put this guy in. Yeah, so actually the corners, if you can see that real close, grab something to point with, it's smaller than my finger. The corner there is actually exposed after all, so that sucks. I'll clean that all up and smooth it out and fill it in, and you know, once I get everything in there and nice and square, because I do want that to look like solid, you know, like a solid concrete thing, not panels coming together. So more to come. All right, so looking down on the roof, got that little L-shaped little bracket doohickey out of the way, and went ahead and scratched that down to bare plastic so that the side support will have something to attach to. But now with that marked, and I've got my pad glued into place, and this side the way it's going to be, I think it's time to go ahead and do the gravel. I think I need to do that first, just looking at how this looked with this whole concrete structure in the corner. It'd be really hard to get in here, this area here, and work. As you can see how big my finger actually is. There's not a lot of room in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and do it now, and then go from there. So more to come. All right, got the ballast on the roof, and some parts kind of laid where they're gonna go. The elevator, stairwell, whatever that is on the right hand side, I guess it's a stairwell, I've been calling it an elevator, that is glued in place, and there is a little lip there that I didn't realize was going to be visible, so I came back and sort of touched that up. It has no brick pattern, it's just plain styrene, but I at least gave it the same color as the brick. I don't know if I like that. It's even got one of those little, you know, little doodads where there's a little circle in the surface of the plastic. I don't love that. I'm gonna probably need to work on this whole thing a little bit. Those corners, kind of hide those seams with putty, file it down, mask a bunch of stuff off, and spray some more concrete color on there. But we'll get there. It's getting closer. That's still somewhat wet, and I left a little spot there for the other two sides of the thing that holds the water tower up, the little concrete support structure, so I could glue that to plastic. So pretty pleased with how this is starting to come together now. A couple more little things to work on here with regards to the water tower itself. I'm liking that kind of base wood color, but I got a whole bunch of grays and different colors to go in and kind of highlight you know, some of the different boards in there, and then it's a matter of coming in and getting those metal bands that hold the wood together. The roof, it's just some same color as the doors and windows and everything else, just sort of as a primer until I figure out what color I want to paint that and how I want to treat it. But I recognize that that's metal, that's wood, that's concrete, so doing my best to replicate that. This little pipe here fits down in that thing and sits directly underneath the water tower. So all right, well, here's the water tower. After I was kind of messing around, I was thinking about painting individual boards and trying to highlight different boards or whatever, and I just settled on just some dry brushing. I like that. Sort of looks like distressed old wood now, and maybe just come in with a little bit of rust where those metal rings are, and call it good. I don't know. I just used cheap acrylics. I think I showed these earlier. just some various grays and, you know, actually I think elephant gray. This is the darker one here. Elephant gray, just this cheap, you know, whatever, Walmart 50-cent one. And the khaki are the ones that I blended together in there, and I used the most. I kind of like how that looks. I may want to come in and touch it up, or I may just leave it as is. That's pretty good. So that would sit up there. I don't know how good that light is. So there we go. All right, I just came in with a couple rust powders and add a little rust, a little bit of stains and whatnot here and there around the water tower. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and call that done. All right, got it glued to the base. Just started some basic weathering on the base, and since I liked the dry brush on the side so much, I just went ahead and did the same thing to the roof. And I think if I can get it to focus there, I think I like the look I get from that. It really pulls out the details, especially on the little hatch, which goes sort of that way, because there's a little ladder that goes up to that. So yeah, I think that's it's going to turn out just fine. See if I can put it up there. So it's going to sit up something like that. I was doing some touch up on the other two pieces there. So we'll get that put in, and I already glued down these roof pieces here. So it's just a matter of finishing this tower and that one, the inside there that I talked about before, and the roof will be done. Already starting to think through, I've mentioned it earlier in this video, but starting to actually get the things that I need to do the interior, which would be, I'll finish off the roof, the two towers, and move to the interior in the next video. So this one's starting to get a little long. Spent all week working on the roof, but I think it turned out pretty good. Show you the finished product in the next video. If y'all are enjoying what you're seeing here, don't forget to subscribe. I got a lot of other videos out there. You should be able to see a playlist come up here of all my stuff. So yeah, if you like it, go ahead and subscribe. Help me out. I'm trying to grow the channel a little bit. With that, I hope everybody is well and safe.